Hi everyone, Phoenix Wildfire here. Welcome to part 2 of my Pregnancy Unplanned series. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the first trimester. And just to de-glorify, is that the word? De-glorify, that's the one that's coming to mind. Just to showcase and highlight that pregnancy is not always so freaking great. Even if you've chosen to, even if you've been, you've had an ambition to be a mother, a parent your entire life, and now it's happening, that it's about recognizing and holding space for every facet of pregnancy. And the reason I'm doing this is because in my first trimester, my experience was so isolating and was, long story short, was shit in a lot of ways. And I just found that this information wasn't as widely available, and often I would just find a lot of people talking about the beauties of pregnancy, and then I'd find very little in the way of people navigating the intricacies of pregnancy that weren't so great. So I just thought I'd be somebody out here expressing my own journey, just to offer another perspective for those who are out there perhaps going through similar to what I did for the first 12 weeks of my pregnancy. So I am now 14 weeks. Nope, not 14 weeks old. The baby is 14 weeks old. But, probably on par with that age. I want to highlight to you that I have wanted to be a mother for a very, very long time. Not my entire life, but for reasons I'm not going to get into right now, but definitely the last 10 years. Did I expect it to be in the way that it's happening right now? No. Would I have liked to have had a healthy partner involved with me? Yes. And I'm navigating a lot externally right now, which is making things challenging, but I'm also very, very grateful for where I am and the fact that this is happening. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the first trimester, because there are so many complexities and facets to those first 12 weeks that are often not really just recognized. So the first thing I want to say is the first 12 weeks is usually when the most amount takes place between mother and baby. And what I mean by this is you are creating the basic building blocks. Your body is adjusting itself to be able to hold and home this living being or beings for the next 9 months. And in those initial 12 weeks is where you are building the organs. The organs are developing the very early stages of what it will be, a being is taking place. So your body is actually doing almost the most amount of work that it will be doing throughout the entire pregnancy. And it's also during this time where you're often not showing at all, unless you're somebody like me who had severe bloating from about week 5, where I already look 4 months pregnant. A lot of people don't show during this time. And then adding on to that is a lot of people choose not to share what is happening in those first 12 weeks. They keep it a secret because in those first 12 weeks is when you are most vulnerable to there being complications. And so a lot of people choose to navigate the first 12 weeks without really sharing it with anybody. Now, if you have a partner, and there were moments in my first trimester where I did have a supportive partner with me, I felt a little bit less isolated because I knew I was going through the process with him. And at the same time, I still felt very isolated in the fact that I wasn't telling too many people around me because I wanted to ensure that I was fully safe in the first 12 weeks. But even with that partner on board, I still felt very isolated. I wasn't showing, but I was also experiencing a lot of other debilitating symptoms, which made my experience very challenging. And I wasn't also able to tell other people what I was experiencing to showcase why I was experiencing these other symptoms. And I think it's also really important in those first 12 weeks, even this has been planned for you, or you've been inactive or actively engaged in trying to get pregnant for a matter of months, a matter of years. In those first 12 weeks, you're still holding so many different emotions. You're holding the excitement, but you're also holding on to perhaps levels of fear and confusion, because all of a sudden your body's changing. You're feeling these twinges, these pulls, these pains. You're feeling there's something happening in your body. And if this is your first pregnancy as well, you are thinking, is this okay? Is this normal? Should I be getting checked? Like, I'm really confused, I'm scared, etc., etc. So you're navigating having to trust yourself fully, and also always thinking, oh my goodness, is this normal? Should I, even down to the food you're eating. Can I eat this? Am I not allowed to eat this? Like, I've got to check up on this. And, I remember very clearly, I typed in once, and I mean, Google is not the perfect way of finding the answer, but I just typed it in once, a banana is safe to eat whilst being pregnant. And I came up with multiple things, but there was one article that was like, hell no, super, super dangerous if you have more than one. The potassium levels can do this, this, and this. And then I had another article that was like, yeah, of course, bananas are great. They're blah, 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 blah. And it's that kind of gave me a really clear example of like the information out there for a lot of pregnant people. It's just like navigating all these different emotions, and is this right? And am I doing the healthiest thing? What should I be doing? I can't tell anyone. I'm really isolated, and I'm experiencing all this weird stuff going on. So it's just that in of itself is super stressful, at least for me. Other people may find it really easygoing and flow and trusting, etc. And then on top of this, one of the things that I came to understand, at least this is the truth that I was given and I followed it, was that in those early 12 weeks, you're not really supposed to take any forms of medication. Now, I'm somebody who doesn't use medication anyway. I'm very privileged in that. I don't need to use medication. If I have a headache, I just sit it through. But that's just my experience. But I came to realize as well, if, for example, you were to develop a UTI or a yeast infection, or have a flu or a cold, or in Thailand here, you're at risk at certain times of the year of developing dengue fever if you get bitten by certain mosquitoes. One thing I learned was that it's actually almost as dangerous to take medication as it is for the actual disease, fever, infection itself. So I actually developed a bit of a hormonal imbalance, which led to a yeast infection. And it's completely normal in pregnant ladies, but I was told, you can't take anything for this. You can't take any like sort of oral medication, because it could be as equally damaging to this very, very tiny little bean, as I call them, that is developing. You just have to ride it out. And so I'm going through really, really uncomfortable symptoms, as you can imagine if you're other women who's experienced this. And also just thinking day in, day out, like, I really hope this is not spreading. I really hope this is not going to cause any long-term damage. So there's always that powerlessness as well. And then adding on to that, especially if you're a first-time mother, such as myself, there's a level of fragility you feel in the beginning. Now, as you move through pregnancy, I can assure you, at least from my experience, is that fragility fades a little bit. Like, I'm not reckless. I'm not going to go and like dance on ice and fall over and go and ride horses or anything. But in the beginning, like any sort of twinge and pain and bloatedness, I'm just so overly aware of, or I was so overly aware of. So I went to the gym, and I've always lifted weights. I have done for like 9-10 years now. And I'm doing the same weight. In fact, I haven't added any weights for quite a while in my routine. But now all of a sudden I'm doing an exercise, which is completely fine for pregnancy. But I'm doing, RDLs or something, and all of a sudden I'm getting this twinge, and immediately I'm like, stop, I can't do this anymore. And it's like this period of time where you almost feel really fragile, especially if it's your first pregnancy, and you're really kind of, some of us at least, underconfident in our body's ability to be fully protective. Now, we know that the body creates protective layers, and there's a lot down there that's developed for this very reason. And there's still that period of time where you feel really fragile, like, should I be eating this? Should I not be eating this? Should I be moving in this way? Can I lay on my tummy still? So that fragility can often kind of throw a lot of women for six when they kind of have to navigate that as well. Like, oh goodness me, can I still do the things I love to do? I've got to stop everything now. Like, what's going on here? So it's all of this in the first trimester by itself is what a lot of women experience. And then on top of that, this is the bit I wanted to get to, is you have debilitating symptoms. Some women, not all. So the first one, as I said to you earlier, I had severe bloating, and that's not the end of the world. I mean, I just embraced it at one point and was like, hey, if people ask if I'm pregnant, I can say, yeah, I am. And they're like, oh, wow, thinking I'm 4 or 5 months. And they'll go, how many weeks? I'm like, 6. Like, what? my bloat was quite severe, and it's quite normal because, you know, things are shifting and moving and stretching and doing all of this jazz, and my digestive system is like, okay, this is extra work, what's going on here? So it's very normal, but it took me a while to adjust, going from having a six-pack and being super lean to all of a sudden having this bloat on, where I looked 4 or 5 months pregnant every day, consistently. And some of the bloats I would have by the end of the day once I'd eaten, even if I hadn't eaten a lot. Well, yeah, it was like, wow, I'm just gonna push it out and just embrace it, but it's also super uncomfortable. And for those of you who follow me, you'll also know in other videos I talk about how I'm also recovering from an eating disorder. So in the early first trimester, I was also allowing myself to eat what I need to eat to be able to nourish my body, and my body was changing, and I gained a lot of weight, not a lot, but for me, like what I gained in the first 12 weeks, it was normal because I'd under-eaten for so long and my body was so small that it was normal to balance myself out. But also that was probably weighing in with this bloatedness and this uncomfortableness I suddenly felt in my body. And again, remember, if you have a bloat on, but you're not telling anyone in those first 12 weeks and you're trying to hide things maybe just to keep it quiet, and you've got this massive belly all the time with a bloat, it can be really challenging to not want to say something to somebody, and it can also then compound that isolation. Now, on top of this, I want to talk about really the two main symptoms I had, but I'm going to throw in a third one because I didn't have this, but this can also be equally awful, which is where a lot of women find the first trimester so challenging. So first of all, you can have the morning sickness. I'm so grateful I did not get this at all, which some people then suggest, well, hey, now I can kind of guess the gender of your baby, but I'm going to leave that because I don't know right now. I think I know, but I'm going to keep it quiet. But I didn't have morning sickness at all, but I do know women who've had horrific morning sickness. And yeah, wow, to have that on top of what I had, I'm glad the universe kind of spared me of that one. But if you had morning sickness, especially as severe as some of my friends did, wow, like I have compassion and love for you because it looked absolutely freaking awful. My number one symptom, first of all, that I had was debilitating fatigue. Now, I have friends in my life who suffered from what they call long COVID for a number of years, still are experiencing it now, those who've experienced or are experiencing chronic fatigue. And I had an experience back in 2020 where I contracted what I believe was COVID for 5 days, and I had to literally do this because I couldn't open my eyes and I couldn't get up off the sofa, and 5 days was enough for me. So to know there are people out there who experience this day to day, week to week, year to year, decade to decade, oof, I send absolute love and compassion to you because whatever you're doing, you are incredible. And I experienced that for about 6 or so weeks, probably from about week 4 to about week 10, where I would find myself laying on the floor. I'm pointing down to the floor here because it was this floor all day. I'm in Thailand, the sun is out. I could not even muster the energy, emotional or physical, to get myself out of the house and drive 5 minutes to the beach. I'm laying on the floor. Sometimes I'm doom scrolling, thinking, why am I doom scrolling? I don't want to take this information and stop. And thinking, I cannot right now even fathom the idea of standing up, sitting in front of a computer and sending an email. And this was about a 6-week period. And because all the stress is going on with outside external factors, and the fact that I am the person who I need to bring in a lot of finances over the next few months in order for me to be able to support myself fully, there was that added pressure of like, you cannot be laying on the floor every day. Again, there were moments where I was in a partnership with the co-creator of the baby, and you know, I was very much told, you just take care of yourself in the pregnancy. If you've done nothing today, okay, you just look after yourself. You've eaten, that's all you need to do right now. So it was super nourishing for me. And I think had I had that throughout and still have that now, it would be, of course, very much wanted and appreciated. So those who do have partners who are that way inclined, it must be really beautiful to have that little bit of respite. But at the same time, if you're someone who's still actively working, like I am running and building a business. So right now, like I don't have a boss to answer to, I am the boss. And so I'd lay on the floor and I wouldn't have, and to be honest, these were the times when I probably would have benefited from having a job to have to force myself out of the house, but I honestly don't know how I would have managed to function at work. Honestly, I even a sort of a basic job where I'm not having to think much and just having to sit there, I do not know how I would have done it. So for those of you experiencing debilitating fatigue in those early weeks, I just want to recognize just how debilitating it is, because it really is. Now, compounded was something that I want to talk about, because I can't remember statistics, but I'm pretty certain it was like early 30s in terms of 30%, 31%. I could be mistaken. I don't want to misquote this. But I want to talk about the other symptom I had, which was debilitating depression. Now, I don't know whether this was, and it's a combination, I'm sure, but whether it was just the hormonal shifts in my system, because that's something that really happens and you tend to peak around week 11 or so for most women, or a lot of women. Whether it's me a bit more deeply ingrained in the fact that it could be perinatal depression, still navigating that thought now. I don't feel depressed most of the time now, but I do experience sadness most days. This could also, again, be to do with the situation between myself and the co-creator of this baby, and a couple of other factors. But the depression I experienced in those early weeks, again, probably around the same time, week 4 to about week 10, 11, again, I was just reminded of anyone who experiences these symptoms on a long-term basis without medical treatment or without any form of treatment to reduce them. Again, I just have I'm in awe, because most nights for that 6-7 week period, I would cry myself into a stupor for hours on end by myself in my room, debilitated by my fatigue. And I genuinely contemplated many times ending my life. Even though I could identify with that part that didn't want to live, that felt too overwhelmed, that didn't think it was ever going to end, and being able to sit with that part, because I've done so much healing work on myself, I recognize this part is within me. I'll do a video specifically on where this part came from, because it came from me as a baby. And it makes a lot of sense why it's coming up again in this cycle now that I'm growing a baby myself. But those nights of laying in my room, generally thinking, this is a bit more than just being passively aware of the fact I don't want to live anymore. It's not that I don't want to live, it was I don't want to feel this anymore. This is too overwhelming, this is too much. To feel that, and then to feel guilt and shame and confusion around the fact that, first of all, my belly would ache, and I was convinced I was damaging the child, which then compounded my suffering, compounded my depression. And then on top of that, feeling absolute shame that I couldn't sit in the gratitude of this baby, because it's an absolute dream, it's a gift. And this is why this is not for this video, but I will always have nothing but love for the co-creator of this child, regardless of whether our relationship ever rekindles in any way for this child, because he's given me an absolute gift. A gift that I can receive, a gift that right now he doesn't appear to be able to receive, and that's on him. But to not be able to feel any form of gratitude for this baby, and then to actively feel the physical pain in my body as if I was damaging the baby, and then to know, because I have deep understanding of how babies are impacted in the womb. I'll do so many series on these, because this is my healing and my work that I do, and my own journey as well, to understand how I was impacted by being in my mother and as a baby, and to know what is happening neurologically and physiologically, biologically, etc. in the womb when I'm actively in this space of depression and not wanting to live. Just again, the word I use is compounded, just kept compounding this depression over and over and over again. I'm so grateful that I've come out the other end of that. I still feel sadness. I still feel it in the back of my throat speaking about this, because I'm still sad about the connection or disconnection with the father. And there's a couple of other elements that are quite pressing around me that I'm navigating, and this is a human experience. We all experience the whole wave of emotions. But I just really wanted to highlight the realities of pregnancy for anyone who may be feeling any guilt or any shame or confusion, not thinking it's ever going to end, not being able to fathom the idea that they have to sit through this for another 6 months or 7 months. Just to normalise that when people say that having children is life-changing, I do believe that begins when you're pregnant. It's life-changing for yourself, it's life-changing for the baby. You're already setting up imprints. This may be hard to hear for some people. You're already setting up imprints for the way that that baby or children or person is going to navigate their life, and the hurt and the pain that they may have to experience as adults. It's already beginning to be built within you when you're holding that baby within you. And sometimes we as a society, and this is generalizing, but people paint pregnancy to be incredible. And they may talk a little bit about some of the symptoms they have, but then it'd be dismissive because they've kind of gone past that stage now and they've given birth. Especially for women who don't have partners involved, for whatever reason that may be, it can compound their experience even more, make it even more challenging. So I just really wanted to normalize all of these aspects of what the first trimester can look like. And some women go through without a single symptom. Some women don't even realize they're pregnant until, the end of the first trimester, moving into the second. Some people have symptoms that are far worse than I do. But yeah, I just wanted to normalize, like, I am so grateful. This is a gift. And at the same time, there were hundreds of moments in those first 12 weeks where I genuinely couldn't sit with that fact. I couldn't embody that it was a gift. I felt so disconnected. I'm still building a connection with the baby right now because that first trimester, I was not able to connect with that child. And I'm not allowing myself to feel guilt and shame because this is the process. I trust this is my journey. This is the baby's journey. And now I'm trying to actively engage in creating a connection with the baby because those first 12 weeks, it just simply wasn't possible for me. There was too many things happening around and within me to even begin to cradle this little bundle of joy, this miracle, and just be able to put all of my focus on that. So yeah, that's my first trimester experience. I will update you on other experiences I'm having in the past few weeks, and I'm in an amazing space right now, still navigating a few things as I mentioned, but I also have far much more clarity and understanding, and I'm far more embodied in my experience, and I am just so grateful to be able to sit here and talk to you about this and just to have a few tears in my eyes but have a smile, whereas a few weeks ago I wouldn't have been able to even set up the camera and talk and look as radiant as I do because it was another story altogether. So yeah, if you're going out there right now and navigating the world as a single mother, pregnant, or maybe you just found out you're pregnant and you're going through the first trimester and you've stumbled upon this video, please know that whatever you're experiencing is normal, but let's just not try to glorify it. Like, you may be experiencing horrific stuff right now, and I'm just sending you lots of love as you navigate each and every day, and hopefully I can be a beacon to show people that it can change, it does change. But that's not to say it isn't awful sometimes when you're in the middle of it.